في صوت بيطلع يعني مش ناس قاعدين يعني فيش بني ادمين. Hey, I am Basil Adra.
And I'm Yuval Abraham. We are the directors of No Other Land, and we are here in the IndieWire studio in New York to talk for the Toolkit podcast.
Thanks for watching.
I think maybe the easiest place to start, and it sounds like pretty mundane, but Basil, can you tell me a little bit about your hometown?
It's a town called Masafer. It's in the southern occupied West Bank. It's on the border of Green Line. It's farmers' communities, like small villages separated in this town. Mainly people are shepherds. This is how my grandfather grew up, and my father as well. People used to live very simple life, making caves in the mountains, and lived in it. We're speaking about the history of the area. And cultivate the land and work with the sheep, and very, very different than a life of in the city.
And it's in the West Bank. What's happened there? Because I just want to give some context here.
The West Bank generally it was under the occupation and control of Israeli military since '67, and in the '80s they started the policy of building settlements, quite before in the '70s, but mainly in the '80s. They has clear plan that they go building settlements in our area. For example, Masafer settlement started in the '80s, and in the policy it was kind of sneaky and malicious. I hear a story from my grandfather and all the people in my area. They said the army came and told them, we're gonna build a road for you here, we're gonna just have some caravans on this mountain here and this mountain for the workers and for bulldozers that is making the road for you, and which is today the settlements are in this place. And the area split it between it's kind of improved. Israel used the settlements and the designating big and huge lands as a firing zone area, which is to take communities from people and farming areas for the Israeli military to do trainings. And
They call them military firing zones.
Military firing zones.
That's the
yeah.
excuse for
Yes, it's 20% of the West Bank, the total, and part of this it's 14 community out of 20 in Masafer was designated as a firing zone back in the '80s as well. Same years they start building settlements. And another thing, the state land policy, where they take also lands. Some of it were designated even state land from the Ottoman period, from Turkish period. And they legitimize it to take the land that we are the state as a state of Israel, and we decide what to do with this land. And mainly it goes for to legitimize the building of settlements and outposts. And then with the Oslo agreement, this area, West Bank, were split in 3 areas: Area A, Area B, Area C. Area A, where you have the Palestinian Authority controls everything, supposed to be controlling everything. Area B, it's shared security for Israel, civil in the civil roles for the Palestinian Authority. Area C, where I live, where Masafer is completely under the Israeli military control for from security. If we want to build a home, we need the permission from Israeli army. If we want to clean water, we need the permission from Israeli army. Whatever, anything. We want to move a stone, that's supposed to go through Israeli military rules on this land. That's, according to Oslo agreement, that should be a temporary situation. But
And in the last few years, it's gone through the largest displacement. Is that right? It's the largest. It's been in the last 5-6 years, right? In the largest removal of people from the area.
You are talking about the court decision.
Well, I'm also talking about the actual removal.
Yes,
the
actual move. Yes, that's right, and that's mainly happening for 2 reasons. One is that in the past decades, Israel made the Palestinian life in these areas unlivable. Anything we build, it's illegal, so they will come and destroy it. preventing people to have like clean water to drink, water for their animals, preventing people to access to land where they can like cultivate and feed their animals, preventing people to have homes or schools, and safety from the soldiers by invading homes, arresting people, attacking communities, doing trainings for soldiers in a lot of communities with tanks, with putting targets in the roads and shoot at them, preventing the movement of the like really making the life miserable when you live decades under a situation where they bulldozer the road that you go from it, where they confiscate your car because it's civil car, can't move in this specific area, where you can't have home, and you rebuild your home, they destroy it 5, 6, 7 times, 10 times, and your life become to build a home. That is literally what you are trying to do, is to have a home, and you can't. So, and the other thing that plays a big role in the recent years is the settlers' pogroms and attacks under the support and the facilitation of the Israeli army, where they go in Masafriyatta to burn homes, cars, attacking individuals, like cutting wires of electricity, stabbing water tanks, and in Hawara, in Tormos, and they murdered a number of Palestinians in those communities during the pogrom. So there was people felt unsafe, and their life became unlivable, like in this situation. So yeah, it's like since October till today, 6 communities in my area just fled, and across the West Bank there's like thousands of people who fled from their homes in the recent 2 years, 3 years.
And you met Yuval, you're a journalist who's been coming into these areas to report, right?
Yeah.
That's how you met. That's how the two of you met.
Yeah, I'm a journalist. I write for Plus 972 magazine, which is an Israeli Palestinian media outlet that's like left-leaning and has been covering for many years the military occupation. And for me, that was, I've been writing about this mainly in Hebrew for many years. Trying to report on things that almost do not appear at all in the Israeli mainstream media. And a big part of that for me was being on the ground, because it's not, often journalists will come after violence had happened and do interviews with people who suffered from that. But I thought there's a lot of power in being there and actually seeing, with your own eyes what happens, in the morning when the community wakes up and you have, the little children looking at the road and seeing this line of cars approaching the community. And it has like 2 bulldozers, 3 white cars, and then like very large military jeeps, and they move in a straight line. And you look at it and you never know, you literally don't know where they're going to turn and which village, because as Basil said, Israel deems anything Palestinians build in that area, even though they're on their lands, illegal. So theoretically, the military can come and destroy almost every house that they want. There are thousands of people who don't know if it'll happen today, tomorrow. Yeah, and this feeling of dread, you watch this convoy and you don't know, will it be your turn or that? And these are things that, what I just described to you, these are things that you can, I think, in a way only write about either if you live that situation like Basil is and has been writing for a long time, or if you come and witness the things as a journalist. And as an Israeli, this was very important for me over the years to do. And that's how me and Rachel met Basil and Hamdan, and we formed this Israeli Palestinian collective at first we were doing this for journalism, but then we began working on this No Other Land, on the film 5 years ago. But we met through journalism, basically.
You're a journalist and I think a lawyer too, right? Do you have
I studied law. Yeah, I didn't practice in the court.
But instinctively, you've been picking up the camera. Maybe it's just, maybe that's just the world we live in. But you've instinctively been picking up the camera and filming. Your parents are activists, I believe. I know they are. I saw the film. But that's something, because I want to talk about the move towards filming, but that's something that you've just kind of instinctively been doing is documenting this from since you were a kid, right?
Yeah, so in Masafriyatta, the camera came like earlier, like in 2000. It's something was new to the people of the area. Before that, like things that would happen in Masafriyata stays in Masafriyata and among the people, but it never went out of the area. And activists who came, international and Israeli left-wing activists who start to come in solidarity with the people in my community to support them, brought these cameras with them, and then they taught some of the community members how to use those cameras. So I grew up see those activists. I grew up with them. I grew up like seeing the cameras around me. So I start to use it myself and learn how to use it and go. And then like I thought about it a lot, and I think like still there's no enough people knows about Masafriyata. There's support, like our stories should be separated, like bigger than what it is, and people should know the injustice that we are living and going through. So that's like I thought that I should continue using the camera as it is the only tool that basically we have on the ground in our hands. And I start like move on taking the camera and filming, and then start use like social media to upload footage, videos, try to influence people on social media about what's happening, to tell them that we exist in this world and we're living this kind of life, and we have this injustice that continue, and we have those evidence that they're filming here and there in the communities, try to show to the people. And felt like also with the years using it a responsibility that whenever something happen, people calls me to call the activist or to go myself, like film what's happening. I felt the responsibility to move on, like even in many times it wasn't safe, and I got hurt and arrested by military for approaching to places and to film them doing.
I want to talk
stuff.
about that.
Yeah.
I want to come back because I that's the first thing that popped into my mind watching it is there. Well, I want to come back to that. There is something here. I think, right? You would hope that the facts, you would hope that the information that this is what's happening to people would be enough. But there is something, and I think your film's a big testament to this. There is something about the immediate of watching a family watch their home be destroyed and watching kids run around. There's something about that cuts through maybe a lot of, is that part of this? Is that element of the need to make a film in that sense? Is that the images somehow cut through all?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we talked about it, that an image really speaks much louder and much deeper than what you can say with words, and what we're saying right now, even on this interview. And at least for me, part of the reason to want, as a journalist, to want to explore this medium of cinema and of documentary filmmaking is exactly as you said. I think it allows to show, first of all, the human consequences of the bigger, political frameworks that are often discussed in the news, and to show really the things that are more day to day, that are, yes, like a mother sitting with her son who was shot because they were trying to rebuild their house, and they're sitting in a dirty cave in Masafriyata, in Basel's community, because they cannot build a house because it will be destroyed by the military. And so much can be said about this policy and about how the military declines 99% of Palestinian requests for building permits, and how absurd it is that a military will decide for Palestinians where they can build. So much can be said, and so much is being said, but just looking at this mother with her son in the cave and being there with them, and this is something that documentary can achieve, that really I think it touches on such a deeper sort of emotional truth, and when things are repetitive, and the military occupation is repetitive, and when you keep seeing these snapshots of violence everywhere, like all the time, and it's again and again, people get really desensitized to it. And I think we were really, really frustrated, because we are both, as activists as well, like we really want to make a political change. Like, we really think it's And we've been thinking this, for years before October 7th, and for years before of like all of these atrocities that are happening now, and all of the violence. And we've lost people. Like I've lost 3 people that I know on October 7th. Basil's cousin was shot. Like people that I know in Gaza that were killed, entire family. So we've been for years calling for a different path. We were saying, look, this is not sustainable. Like you cannot hold millions of people with no rights. There has to be a political change. And we were writing about it, and you feel this desensitization. Nobody's listening. And that was the urge for us to try to explore a new medium, to sort of, through a film, maybe help people see again things that they became sort of unable to see. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think when you see the film too, I've been reading, I just say it's because I've been reading a lot about the history of the West Bank recently. There's been there's always been good writing about, but there's been some big pieces, and even just going back through the history with Rabin and then him being assassinated, and it for people that are interested, the history makes it that much richer. But the truth of the matter is, there's something about right from the start with this film. You instantly are connecting with, like, how are you doing this mother and this mother and this daughter? How is this? And maybe that's just human nature. This sounds like a really mundane question, but I'm wondering, and because it's going to lead somewhere. We see you the first time or at least the first time in the film, come in, you drive off. How do you get there? Do you know how far away? Like, where do you? It's funny, especially since October 7th, I've started to learn about this region, and it's like some of these areas are so much smaller. But there's also this idea that you have freedom of movement, and we just see you drive off. Like, what is like going to this area for you?
So it's interesting because like the West Bank. There's a green line, right? And that's the border that was like, that was basically, occupied, as Basil said, in 1967. And there are checkpoints all across the West Bank. And these checkpoints are, for Israelis like myself, invisible checkpoints. Since my car has a yellow license plate, I can just cross them freely.
It's like the toll booth to go up north in New York.
Yeah, I just pass through it. And you don't even realize that, that you were like, in Israel, you're now in occupied territory. It's completely like seamless for the Israelis. But when you get to the West Bank, you start seeing cars for the first time only in the West Bank that have green license plates. And this is like Basil's car. And for the green license plates, for the Palestinians who are living under the military law in the West Bank, these checkpoints are not penetrable. The cars cannot leave. They see it's a Palestinian. And for me, I live in Jerusalem, in Western Jerusalem. A town called Nayot. It's a neighborhood, and I just get into the car with the yellow license plate. I drive south on Road 60 for an hour. It's literally a straight line, and I turn left and I enter Basil's village. And this trip, which is so mundane in a way for me, like I can do it, listening to music with confidence. Nothing will happen to me. To do it the opposite way, for Basil to live, just to take the exact same road that I took, is impossible. Literally, it's impossible. He will be stopped at the checkpoint. And this is something, of course, that we explore in the film. Like, I think it was important for us to it's not even like we say the word power imbalance, but it's truly, two people living under two different systems of law, controlled by one state that dictate, their ability to move in the land.
I mean, obviously, you're journalists. And filmmakers with a common goal, with a common vision, and so the idea that you would collaborate, but that is part of this, right? Is there's a conscious effort of wanting the narrative of two people, I guess four, because there's and this idea that almost through this different lens, not the different lens, but the different experience of this occupation. There's an element here of almost like you're trying to set a model to a certain degree. I think somewhere it said. A proposal of an alternative way to live. Like that's like building that into the narrative, right? That the Palestinian and someone is from Israel.
It's very nuanced, I think, because often people look at it and they think, because they hear Palestinian Israelis, they think, oh, that's so beautiful. We're sitting together and eating hummus and having, and of course it's not that, because we the values that we share are based on the understanding that we are currently resisting a very unjust system that is really keeping Basil and millions of Palestinians entrapped with no rights. And we are doing that together because we believe that there can be a path if there is a political solution. there can be a path which is rooted in empathy for both people, for the Palestinians and the Israelis, and who are dependent on one another. Like I believe that security is always a mutual endeavor, and that you cannot destroy lives of people living 20 minutes away from you, 30 minutes away from you, and that energy just will stay there with them, the destruction. No, it will obviously, turn back to you, because it's a cycle of brutality, it's not a symmetrical cycle, because it exists in the backdrop of military occupation. That's the political framework in which this cycle of brutality exists. And we believe it can be replaced with a cycle of empathy and understanding. But if the brutality is fueled by this unjust political framework, to reach that position where we can have, better lives for everybody, we need a political change, one that is based on power sharing, that is based on equality. And this is all very utopian, because right now, really, like, the path to reach that is it's very hard to speak about hope, because we cannot see a political horizon. It's going completely the opposite.
I want to talk about, because the world that you've released this film into, but let's go, because it obviously changed quite a bit in the last year. Watching this, I mean, the bravery of the filming is and standing up and is amazing. I have to ask, though, because for all that the military does, and does ruthlessly, and does it without regard, there's part of me that's sitting there going, why? I'm shocked they're letting you film. Of all the rights that they're trampling all over, I don't know. It's just they'll knock down your home, they'll do whatever, but it's like, they let you film. That's the part that's shocking to me.
Well, I think part of it, like, first of all, it's not that easy. Like, you're seeing
it doesn't look easy. I don't want to say it does.
Like, it's not easy. Like, you're seeing it's also complicated. Like, how, like, they killed like 160 journalists in Jenin. Also, they killed like Shirin Abu Akleh from Al Jazeera, and they're like designated Al Jazeera illegally to cover. And there is many Palestinian journalists are like in Israeli jails from the West Bank.
See, this is kind of what I'm getting at, is that I read about these things, and then I watch you sitting there within 5 inches of a tank driving by as they're about to knock down a house, and that's the part I'm having trouble comprehending.
No, the point is not easy. Like, a lot of time, first of all, we move, if we're in the field, we move not one person, like, together. And for that you see in some scenes I got like or attacked or arrested. Also, I was like in once like running away from the settlers, and that was really hard moment. Like, when they tried to catch me, they were like vandalizing a whole community. And I was like lucky that I really ran away from them before they catch me. But also there's a lot of restrict by the military and by the settlers. So they many times invaded my home because I host activists, and because I'm activist myself, and because of the cameras. And once they have confiscated like 5 cameras from a table that we use like to go film, and a car and a laptop. That's from the home. Many times also activists have been like harmed, their cameras get broken. Myself also, the same thing happened to me, and arrested by soldiers for like filming. As well, they a lot of time put checkpoints, like flying checkpoints, to block us from accessing areas they are demolishing or settlers are committing crimes. But again, it's not like according to the military law. It's not like they don't have legal thing in their hand that they can prevent anybody. They try to pass a law where they want to prevent filming of the soldiers, and that didn't pass. But also they know that there is no consequences. Like, if you look at Gaza today, the soldiers making crimes and they're filming it. Like, I know a commander that a year ago in the summer 2023, he arrested me because I refused to open my phone. He wanted to see materials that I filmed for them there, and he decided to blindfold me and take me to the military base. They tortured me for like hours under the sun in July. I saw the same commander in a video in Gaza this year of him like blowing up Palestinian buildings, and his friends filming him cutting the military card that he finished his service. they know that there is no consequences. They know that they can kill journalists, they can kill children, they can blow up. And we saw like what they are doing in Gaza. It's live on soldiers' Instagram, TikTok, wherever, because they know there's no consequences and they can do it and publish it.
Your father's an activist. Did I read somewhere that I think you document in the film watching things happen to him as a child. Did something recently happen to him while you were
Yes,
you were here for the festival?
No, before I got here, like
Okay.
the day before we come here, he was like arrested from home. And that, like, my little sister, like, saw a group of soldiers walking next to the home, and she took a picture of them with my father's phone. And they said, like, to my father, you let her take a photo of us, you come with us. And they blindfolded him and they like handcuffed him and they took him to the illegal outpost, which is like 300 meters away from our community, which is very close. And they make him sit in the sun, and they were sitting in the shadow, drinking and eating, and they like left him for hours there under the sun, and then they released him.
Once you started to get really into filming and started collecting footage, did you need to protect this? Is this something they put in your trunk and quickly are dumping up on hard drives? I mean, how, I imagine, considering what you're describing, I imagine you feel a need to quickly get this someplace safe, right?
Yeah, a lot of time we like there was like invading of the community, as you saw in the film. So we really, if we are working and they are invading, we stop work, we collect the materials, like mainly hard disk, and go hide them. Or when we go to sleep as well, we hide them in a place, because mostly the military come at night, so we hide them really well. They won't be found by the soldiers when they come in the community to do it. And it was like, no, we needed this materials in the place, because it's the only place where we can meet together and do editing of the movie.
Where did you edit the movie?
In my home, like in the village.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the editing. Obviously, the footage you guys have gotten and the stories are amazing. I'd like to say this up front. I think this film is incredibly edited. And you know, I think anybody that knows this area knows, and probably all the things. I have to imagine between the history, between the time period, and between the incredible amount of footage you have, getting there was not easy. And I imagine it's very hard for something like this to not want to show more and or explain more, right? I'm wondering if you could talk about how you ended up with this very lean, beautiful 90-minute film.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a real difficult challenge to crunch. You know, it's 20 years. Like there's footage in the film from when Basil is 5 years old. So you're like 28 today. So it's 23 years crunched into.
I bet you're sitting there going, "That's not going on the editing room floor. We have to have that in." I almost, you know.
No, when we discovered that, because there was, we not only had a lot of archive material. A lot of that archive material was just like sitting in old tapes that that were never really digitized. So that was, I think also such an amazing, because we just found that just some random person just filmed Basil. Like it was literally, super rare. It's not as if we had endless footage of Basil as a child, and also for people in the Masafariata community, like to see themselves, when they are young and 20 years ago, and there were no pictures. Like today, everybody is filming with their phones, but going 20 years back, that was not the case. Yeah, and I think to crunch that all into 90 minutes was difficult, and it took us years to understand how to do this. I think maybe there are several challenges that I can speak of in the edit. I think the first was, how do you take a very repetitive situation where there is so many instances of violence, and you don't lose completely the repetition. We wanted to have a sense of repetition because that reflects the way life under the military occupation is. But how do you pick the scenes that will create a sort of sense of escalation in a way that matches? Because a lot of the way the military works is that if you just look at one instance of violence, it looks random, like every week a different house. But when you tie it together, you can paint a picture of a policy, and that was a challenge. And another challenge was, we have different threads like in the film. So you have the story of the community, you have the story of us as activists and the relations between me and Basil. You have Haroun and his mother, who are like sort of like one family that we focus on. And when we edited the first cuts, we would screen it to people, and then they would say, well, we at a certain point we forgot about one of the threads. And so when you're telling a narrative that has multiple threads, you have to really be thoughtful about how to keep, to interweave them in a way that the viewer doesn't lose track of neither one. And then also there was this emotional, we did not want, and I remember me and Basil talking about it when we were starting to do this work, like we did not want a film that will depict only like violence again and again and again, and only like one kind of emotion. And this was also something we were thinking about while editing, like how do we remember to have this sort of path through the emotions of the viewer as well, so that so the viewer is not desensitized, feeling exactly the same thing over and over again, but there are moments of joy and moments of contemplation and moments. Yeah, and we worked with Anne Fabini, because it's the first film we're making, and we learned how to edit while doing it, which was quite a...
Yeah, those people that have cut lots of documentaries before are helpful.
Yeah.
Am I right? This film premiered in Berlin in the winter, like February.
Yeah.
Okay, so February 2024. Obviously, you also have October 7th, 2023, and I'm guessing at that point you're deep in the edit, getting ready for festivals. You're probably done, to a certain degree. The film exists in a pre-October 7th world, but then you're bringing it out into a post-October 7th world. And I obviously you have aspirations of this film, but I'm wondering what the world, all these things seem to have been heightened and become more extreme in the last year. And I'm wondering if you talk about that, about bringing this film out in that world.
Yeah, I can say, Basil, you can say, I think immediately, after October, we met like on October 8th or October 9th. And this is after we were working for 5 years on the film. And I was devastated. Basil was, like, we were all, at that certain point, I was thinking, like, first of all, I was thinking of the Israeli society, like, after the trauma that society went through, like, why will they want to watch, like, somebody, there was like, why will they want to watch something else, right? And then also the atrocities in Gaza, and the amount of people, generally speaking, like the amount of people dying, and it was so dramatic that we were thinking, well, what is our story, which is like a story of a community. How does it fit into all of this? Like, when the volumes are so high, like, people, their ears become completely deaf and they cannot, and we were wondering, like, will anybody care even to watch the film? Like, and I think as the months passed, we realized how wrong we were, and how urgent the film is, especially now in, like, I think the post-October world, because I think after you look at the 1,200 Israelis who were killed, you look at the 41,000 Palestinians who are killed, and numbers will reach more than 100,000 people. It's literally like the annihilation of the Gaza Strip. Everyone is uprooted. You look at the amount of death and suffering, and you ask yourself, well, how can the world allow this to continue, and why isn't there a political solution that will change it? And as our film really is, in a way, it's a plea, it's a plea for calling for this political solution. To me, it feels more urgent than ever, and especially here in the United States, when people here in the United States are generally living, people in power are living pretty good lives, and I think they make decisions that influence people who are living in the Middle East in a really horrible way, and people should watch the film in order to understand, I think, the implications, amongst other things, of U.S. foreign policy. That has not, there were points in history. You mentioned the 90s. I think there were points in history where if there was enough U.S. pressure, we could have maybe not solved everything, but we could have reached a political solution that would have kept the flames much lower and brought a much better life for the people in the land. So
There's a part of the film, if I get this wrong, please correct me, but I think there's a part of the film when you're filming in like 2019, 2020.
yeah.
I don't know if it's you. I think it might be you. And there's a determination that you're going to stop this, that you're going to stop, and this belief that you could stop it by filming. And I don't know if it's you who says this, but that the United States, once the United States sees this, right? Is that once the United States sees this, they're going to stop Israel from doing this. How could they not? How could they not? And that was in the back of, I just say it because it's in the movie. That's, to a certain degree, you were saying that almost felt like the target audience based on what was announced in that, I don't know if it's 2019, 2020 filming, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, because the main supporter of Israel is the U.S. The money, the weapons, the diplomats cover the impunity that Israel got, and like when it's violating very clearly international law, it's the U.S. We all know the U.S. is also using a veto against Palestinian state all the time. So other countries I know, but mainly it's here, and I still believe that if there will be a change, must come from here, from this power to that power to stop it. Because if, like, I'm not saying this just to blame Americans and America, because this is the truth, and the truth, like, we've been filming and doing this movie and filming before, that we really want these people to see what their money is doing to us. Whatever the words are, like, different, like said by Biden, by Obama, by Trump, by I don't know, whoever, but the actions are completely opposite. What does it mean to me when U.S. president stand and say we will work in the path for two-state solution, but when countries around the world voting for recognizing Palestinian state, you will use veto against it? When Israel is continuing with its project of settlements around the West Bank, you say that you condemn that, but what you do is you keep militarize Israel. A lot of Israeli settlers organizations that aims to destroy our communities and to build the settlements, and which they are doing. They're getting millions of dollars, and they are registered here in New York City, such as the Regavim organization that was founded by Israeli settler, and today is a minister, Bezalel Smotrich. He found and registered a organization called Regavim here in the US, and it gets millions of dollars. And the aim is very clear, like, go to their social media, is to destruct our communities and to expand the settlements. So, I mean, if this is the actions, what I can get from the words that you are saying of we want two-state solution, and if you want two-state solution, you can do it, and you are the only one that can enforce it.
We're at the New York Film Festival right now. I mean, that's why you're here. Your film played this weekend. It's got a few more screenings left. That idea of making people aware of where their money goes or where their political support goes, it like one thing, and this is not small, I don't mean small, but this is one piece of it. Like, something is part of this, because I know a lot of filmmakers, and I don't know if you, I apologize, I don't know if you were part of this as well, but like calling out the New York Film Festival, Bloomberg is a sponsor, and money from them is going to organizations that has this kind of effect. Is that something, I wonder, is that part of this? Is even something like the sponsor of a film festival making you aware of where dollars are going? Is that important?
I personally think it's very important. I think we can all do better in that sense. And we read the letter speaking about the Bloomberg Foundation, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's doing incredible things in the cultural scene in New York City, but we saw that it's also funding a project where it's sort of a leadership program for, like, the heads of the Israeli settler municipalities. And it's such an absurd, contradiction that literally those same municipalities that are responsible for the destruction of Basel's community and are clearly breaking international law are the leaders of those municipalities are receiving funding from like the same source that is funding parts of the New York Film Festival. And yes, and we believe that this is wrong. And in a way, because we are filmmakers who are participating in the festival, and we are grateful for, for the stage that we got in the festival, and we don't take it for granted. We suddenly have a little bit of power. We don't usually have power, but yeah, we suddenly have a little bit of power to tell the festival that it's actually not okay to be doing that. And I think that you should, any festival or any person in the cultural scene should make sure that or should tell the people donating them not to donate to or organizations or individuals who are clearly breaking international law. And just recently, the highest court in the world, the ICJ, ruled that Israel's occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem and Gaza is illegal, that it's permanent and it's illegal. So and we don't have time to waste. Like, really, people are dying, and this is harmful first and foremost for the Palestinian people. But I believe that on the long term, this is also harmful for the Israelis, and those of us who want a political solution based on justice and equality and freedom really should ask from the US and from the festivals to check themselves and to do better. Like, we really, we need to move past this. This really cannot go on.
Going back to this idea, because we want your film to be seen. It's a great film, but I mean, for all the reasons that we're talking about too. I had read, as an Israeli journalist, that, and if I got this wrong, please correct me, but that you have found, I don't know if this is specifically a post-October 7th world, but I think it is, that you've had trouble getting a reception for the type of reporting that you were doing within Israel in more recently. Is that, I'm trying to figure out this world that we're putting this film into. Is that the case? Is that things have become so divisive that even just reporting on something like this is more problematic?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think it's to me, I felt a sort of, I don't know if it's like a identity crisis or a professional crisis post October 7th, because for many years my prime audience was the Israeli population, and I was writing in Hebrew, and it was never easy because you write to people or to large parts of a society that sort of don't accept what you're writing about and would get angry at you for writing about it. And I still felt it's important, and I felt it's moving people, and that it's, and that I'm able to make some change. And I think it's my responsibility, first, like, as an Israeli, this is my community and the people where I was born, and it's my responsibility to try to change that. And I don't know, in the past year, I feel I had this, because we're making the film, and it's mainly like oriented towards international audiences. So suddenly we're speaking in English and, faced more towards the West. And I also felt really that people stopped completely, like the little amount of people who cared about it in the Israeli society now completely do not. And I don't know what, I still write in Hebrew. You're right. Like, there's a lot of pushback. I've written a lot of investigations for Plus 972 magazine, mainly about Israel's bombing policy in Gaza. So I spoke to Israeli whistleblowers from inside Israeli intelligence who sort of spoke about the kind of tools that they were using and like the amount of civilians that they were authorized to kill per suspected military target, and like that the numbers were sometimes in the hundreds. And there's these things they draw a lot of attention internationally, but now in Israel, not so much. Yeah.
It's an incredibly well-reviewed film. Festivals are programming it. It's also a very timely film. What are the conversations like with distributors? Is this something, I'm asking straight up, is this something that people are having trouble? Because Hollywood has got its own issues in terms of how to discuss this. I'm sure, I just know some of these people in the world. I'm sure there's fans of this film out there in the distribution world. Like, and
so we're not having those, like, we're working with Cinetic who are in touch with many different distributors. What we know is that there are ongoing conversations with distributors, and it seems to me like, on the one hand, people really love the film, and
very strong reactions.
Yeah,
I think our review was like one of the best reviews I've read this year.
Yeah,
that David wrote. Yeah.
David wrote it. Yeah, David really supported the film, and we were really moved by the review and really great reactions. And also an urgency. I think the public really wants to see the film. Like, people are asking us, when will it be available in the United States? And and it's the first film we're making, so we don't know all of the
you know all that's
considerations
of
and
it.
all. But
Yeah.
I think we are still hopeful that it will get strong distribution in the United States. For us, it will be really. It's like a crime if it's not out there to be seen, to spark conversations, and yes, I mean, obviously, maybe some distributors are afraid to engage with the topic of Israel Palestine, but isn't this why we're making documentaries? I mean, isn't like to spark, even if you label this as politically sensitive, even though I think anybody who watches the film, it leaves it feeling that there's a very deep truth in the film, but like, this is why we're making documentaries, to spark conversations, and I think this is so urgent, and we hope that the distributor will step up and take the film. Yeah,
I hope so too. All right. Well, congratulations. It's quite. I say that a lot to great films, but this one is quite just the accomplishment and what you all put into making something like this. It kind of puts it all. It puts filmmaking in perspective, I guess. So, but really, I can't wait for more people to see this one. So,
thank you very much.
We too.
Yeah, appreciate it.